in affiliation with Boss Rush Games. Please visit Boss Rush Games and follow them at the links below to read reviews, hear podcasts, and for all things video game related. Boss Rush Games. Play games. Be better. First, some history. Since the release of Donkey Kong Country in 1994, Nintendo and Rareware had went together like peanut butter and jelly, Jordan and Pippin, a plumber and his crack. The company released 11 games on the Nintendo 64, all of which are practically essential to the system's library. Some of their games, like Banjo-Kazooie and GoldenEye 007, have become synonymous with Nintendo's third home console. Shortly after completing work on the acclaimed Diddy Kong Racing, Rare began drawing up ideas for an action-adventure title called Dinosaur Planet. The game featured fox-like creatures aiding common dinosaurs like triceratopses and raptors, from vicious humanoid lizards who have utilized advanced technology. It seemed like a cool concept, quite different from many of Rare's other outings. While it was still a ways off, it was always expected to release during the Nintendo 64's lifespan. Late into development, however, Shigeru Miyamoto, the father of Super Mario and Zelda and so many others, got a detailed sneak peek at Dinosaur Planet and noted the similarities to one of his other video game children. That being Star Fox. Miyamoto informed Rare that the similarities, while not offensive to him, might be confusing for fans. He offered instead to allow them to adopt the Star Fox franchise just as they had done with Donkey Kong and expand on the Star Fox mythos. On the face of it, this looked like a very good deal. Rare could use a hot Nintendo property that already had a fanbase and well-received characters to bring greater recognition to their own game. But many of the designers were against the idea. They had already spent several years crafting a story and molding unique characters that they had grown attached to. By going with Miyamoto's plan, much of the game had to be scrapped and rewritten to stay true to the Star Fox name. It was during this process that Rare realized that the game would most likely release at the tail end of the N64 life cycle due to the delays caused with rebuilding it around Star Fox. Thus, the decision was made to restructure it even further and turn it into a GameCube launch title. Again, this would give the game more recognition and likely boost sales. Unfortunately, development would take much longer than expected, forcing Rare to release it a full year after the GameCube had debuted. Star Fox Adventures released on September 23, 2002 in the United States and would be available worldwide by the end of November. It received modest scores, with Metacritic listing it in the 82% range, and was even designated as a Player's Choice title by Nintendo, signifying that it had sold over 250,000 copies. Despite this, growing up, I don't remember a single person in my group of friends who had played the game, much less owned it, and recently, when I mentioned reviewing it for this channel, a surprising amount of people responded along the lines of, "Oh yeah, that game! I never played it." As we all know, Rareware would be bought by Microsoft to join the Xbox brand not long after this game's release, making Star Fox Adventures the last game in which Rare and Nintendo would collaborate. It was a breakup that sent shockwaves around the globe. It almost ranks as high as when Brad and Jen split up. Almost. Star Fox Adventure starts off promising. Almost immediately, you're in control of a new original character, Crystal, riding upon a pterodactyl in a vicious storm as a massive ship flies over like a Star Destroyer from most every Star Wars opening. Quickly though, you realize that this isn't like every other Star Fox game. Flight, I'm afraid, isn't anywhere near this game's focus. Aiming your shots to hit this gargantuan ship is surprisingly difficult. There aren't any crosshairs to aid you, thus you have to rely on adjusting each shot after you make them. The targets aren't as clear as traditional Star Fox games either. Sure, big bright glowing areas that scream "hit here" isn't realistic, but it keeps the action focused, quick, and easy to understand. It makes it fun. I wasn't sure if I was to aim at the fire-spitting heads on the back of the ship or the circular, almost target-like designs below them. And let's talk about this ship for a minute. It's definitely a machine with whirling blades and sails keeping her afloat, but then there's this clearly living, breathing head on the front. Is he trapped? Is his life force being harvested to maintain the vessel? Or does he just like the comfort of being confined to a box like a masochist? The world may never know. You'll also notice that Crystal speaks in this weird language, which I think is Dothraki. Actually, according to the guide, it's Saurian, like dinosaur. Real creative there. I know what they're trying to do here. Make Crystal and these dinosaur creatures feel exceptionally alien, part of a completely foreign world. But then they say things like Dinosaur Planet, clearly in English, so then the illusion is completely ruined.
Hiku, Kohud, or Taskuki, Eve Dinosaur Planet.
After damaging the ship enough, Crystal boards the deck to perhaps take on its captain. We're really not sure. In the process, the Blue Fox loses her magical staff. Oh no! So of course we will have to do the tutorial without a weapon because that's fun. Instead of busting heads or firing off lasers with a space gun like most gamers would want to do, you must take on these extraterrestrial jellyfish with explosive barrels. The game plays much more like 3D Zelda games than I had initially thought. From looking at it, you might think it would be more of a platformer like most of Rare's other masterpieces, or maybe an action game like Jet Force Gemini. Both would work very well in this type of game, but instead this sci-fi adventure isn't so much about lasers and explosions than it is about collecting and puzzle solving. You can't jump, for starters, unless you wander off the edge of a platform, then your character will leap forward. You also don't control the camera with the C-stick like you might expect, but with the left shoulder button. Instead, the C-stick is used to quickly select items, which I actually think is really awesome. It eliminates the need to frequently go into the pause screen to sift through your inventory. Unlike Zelda though, Star Fox didn't copy the one thing that made controlling Link in a 3D setting so easy and enjoyable: Z-targeting. Z-targeting made it easy to lock onto your enemies and objects in a three-dimensional plane. Targeting in Star Fox Adventures is shoddy at best. You can't lock on to these jellyfish, for example, making it difficult to hit them with these barrels with any degree of reliability. On the ground, you will enter a combat mode when you get close, but leaving the vicinity will exit the mode, even if the enemies are still after you. Also, you can't change which foe you want to attack once you're locked on. You're stuck fighting whoever the game assigns to you, usually the closest when you first go into battle. This is inexcusable in a 3D setting. One of the first things you do once taking control of Crystal is pick up a Puck egg, which is used to restore lost health. The game immediately informs you that this is not a dinosaur egg, so don't worry, you're not munching on helpless preformed baby dinosaurs. They are baby birds. You discover another healing item soon after, the Dumbledang Pod. It's a type of fruit that, with a name like that, I wouldn't be too thrilled to put in my mouth. Towards the end of this tutorial, you come across a guardian spirit that promises to aid you if you can solve his puzzle. Perhaps you are expecting an intricate dungeon that you must prevail over, or maybe a complicated area of levers, traps, and etc. But instead, it's Cups. The same game that shifty entertainers perform every day on the streets of New York City is presented to you by this ancient, powerful spirit. And he goes so slow that unless you're a corpse, you will be able to win. Guess he doesn't have high standards on whom he lends his power to. Not long after obtaining the spirit, Crystal becomes trapped in, well, a crystal. You know, the controls aren't the only thing ripped from Zelda. It also has damsels trapped in magical gems. These right here, guys, are ideas you've never encountered before. This is when the game shifts perspective to Fox McCloud of Star Command. That familiar music, that Cornerian march as I like to call it, travels through your TV speakers as the Great Fox soars through space. It's a comforting, familiar feeling. You're ready to hop into an R-Wing and take control. Then we get a look on the inside, and things are a bit different. First, you may notice the open pizza boxes, the cans of soda, I'm guessing, littering the floor, and the loud rock music forcing the characters to scream over each other. Is this Star Fox Command or the Space Ninja Turtles? Fox and team come in stark contrast as the dutiful heroes that we have known in the past games. Instead, he's a tad arrogant, aloof, and is only willing to go on this mission to stop the siege of Dinosaur Planet because General Pepper promised to pay him. To get to Dinosaur Planet or any of its moons, the player must maneuver through a flight section. Alright, now that's more like it. Firing off green blasters, destroying enemy drone ships, and reducing large asteroids to rubble. This is the Star Fox way. Unfortunately, these are brief and mediocre. You can immediately tell that these were shoehorned in to capitalize on the Star Fox name. I'd rather that they not be included at all than half-assed. They feel like the gummy ship levels in the Kingdom Hearts games, an okay diversion, but the game could survive without it. At least the familiar elements you love are here, bombs that clear the screen, gold rings to collect, and barrel rolls to do.
Do a barrel roll!
Once you land on the planet, Fox immediately asks the question we all would like to know.
Okay, General, but what about a weapon? Why couldn't I bring my blaster?
Yeah, this is a space game after all, and blasters are almost essential. When playing Smash, Fox isn't all punches and kicks. He has his blaster ready to go. General Pepper responds by saying he doesn't want Fox to blow up the whole planet. Right, the planet is at war, there are enemy forces everywhere, but if Fox has a single gun, he might blow up the entire planet. At least Rare has portrayed Pepper accurately as a politician by having him give a BS excuse. Fox then sets off to find a weapon because, well, you know, he's not here on vacation after all. He has an invading army to stop. Conveniently, Crystal's magical staff that she dropped earlier is very close to where Fox has landed. Picking it up makes her disembodied head talk to you. Those blue flames emitting from it are probably making Fox high and hallucinate. Just like a toddler does when they pick up a random stick, Fox grabs the staff and immediately starts swinging it around like a madman, wreaking havoc on those poor flowers. When you gain control of Fox, you may want to practice using the staff on these textured blades of grass, but alas, hitting them doesn't do squat. They copied everything else from Zelda, but the best part. Soon you'll come across the currency of Dinosaur Planet, scarabs. And not just any scarabs, but live scarabs. Have you ever played Mario and thought this would be so much more fun if the coins ran away and you have to chase them all down? Because that's what this feels like. With this, Rareware is really promoting hustle culture to the extreme. Anyway, as you explore, you'll reach a shrine that grants you your first staff power-up, granting you the ability to fire energy blast from the tip of the staff. Nearly all of your abilities are tied to your staff, which, in all honesty, is pretty cool in that it simplifies things and doesn't force Fox to carry an entire arsenal in his back pocket like Link. You still have to navigate a menu to select each power though, but that's nothing to complain about. There's an impressive list of abilities tied to the staff too. You can blow icy air that can freeze enemies dead in their tracks, an earthquake move that damages foes around you, and even a rocket jump, among others. You can use the projectile blast to unlock certain doors, and behind one of them you'll locate the injured Dino Queen, who requests that you locate her adolescent son Tricky. I don't know why Fox responds the way he does to that though. It's a little weird.
You've got to go to the Ice Mountain and rescue her son, the Prince Tricky.
Nice name.
Tricky has been captured and moved to the other side of the planet, and to get there you're going to need the help of Shrek.
Lovely, sweetie.
Warpstone. Yeah, his name is Warpstone, and he does exactly what you think he does. Once you bring him a gift of rock candy, which you can buy at the store, he'll transport you across the planet to the obligatory snow area that every game has to have. Shortly upon arrival, you'll have to partake in perhaps the most annoying section of the entire game, the speeder chase. You'll race these two evil dinosaurs on these snowmobiles down a narrow mountain path, dodging trees, rocks, and landmines. I initially thought that I just needed to keep up with them, tail them so I know where they're going. However, if they make it to the bottom first, Fox suddenly forgets how to brake and bails like a complete noob. This is a race for some reason, and there is very little room for error. If you hit just a few mines, you might as well restart because you'll never be able to catch up. Maintaining an early lead is absolutely necessary, because some of these narrow corridors make it impossible to dodge the mines that they drop. When I first played this, the unforgiving nature of this race made me stop for a few days because it annoyed me so much. This is not the best thing to include in the first hour of your game. When you win, Fox still manages to look like an idiot by having the slowest fall ever recorded in video game history. You'll run into Prince Tricky here, who is just hanging out by this pool of water rather than being locked up like a good prisoner. The exchange between him and Fox is awkward as hell. Just listen.
Sizboo at hot spring, or you'd be frozen by now.
Why, you little...
Hey, I wouldn't if I were you. My dad's a king earthwalker, and he'll bash you up.
I don't think he'll be doing any bashing. He's been captured. That's why I've been sent to rescue you.
He's been captured?
That's right. It was your mother that sent me to find you.
Is she okay?
She'll be just fine.
So now we need to get Tricky back home, and to do that we have to utilize Tricky's powers. Tricky essentially gives us access to a whole host of new abilities. The prince can dig up items located in soft patches of dirt and breathe fire to attack enemies and set certain objects aflame. Tricky is part dragon, apparently. Performing these actions depletes his hunger, so Fox will have to keep him fed or else he's just useless. Tricky will stay by Fox's side for the vast remainder of the game. I like the idea of having a sidekick with multiple abilities, but I think Rare only scratched the potential of this idea. Tricky is the only partner that Fox gets in the game, and I think the adventure would be much more varied and exciting if more sidekicks were accumulated throughout. Perhaps a new one in each region, and venturing back to places with a new partner will give you access to other routes and secrets. After traveling through the frozen tundra, you'll eventually get Tricky back to his mom, and the Queen will explain just what's going on. It's much more complicated than a normal invasion. General Scales, leader of the Sharp Claw tribe of space pirates, has broken some magical seal that is holding the planet together, and Fox has to go find the 4 spellstones, or else Dinosaur Planet will tear itself apart.
At last, it all makes sense. So, the bad guy takes the spellstones, your planet falls apart, and I've got to find the spellstones and bring them back to the Force Point temples.
See, Mom? I told you he was good.
Is this really the best story that they could come up with? It's almost a parody of what an adventure game is. Again, I don't know if Rare was trying to be funny here or it's just lazy writing. Probably a little bit of both. By now, you'll know exactly how the rest of the game is going to play out. You will fly to an area using the shoehorned flight minigame, discover a new ability for your staff, use that ability to overcome a dungeon and beat a boss, acquire one of the spellstones, and then rinse and repeat 3 more times. Admittedly, it's very much the same formula that traditional Zelda games have relied upon, as well as countless other action-adventure titles. It's just that those games do a much better job of disguising the mechanical gameplay with an exciting story or wonderful areas to explore. The majority of Star Fox Adventures is passable, but it never reaches the heights of similar games of the era like Beyond Good and Evil, Psychonauts, Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy, and so many others. I know I've ragged on this game quite a bit, But to be fair, Star Fox Adventures isn't a bad game by any means. Technically, it's very sound. The graphics are lively and at times impressive, although character animations can come across as a bit janky. David Wise also does a stellar job of composing the game's soundtrack, though fans of his work on the Donkey Kong Country franchise wouldn't be surprised by that. You get plenty of adventurous tribal melodies that are fitting for the prehistoric atmosphere of the title. I do wish there were some more epic themes that were more fitting for the Star Fox franchise, though. In the end, Fox's adventure on Dinosaur Planet just isn't anything remarkable. What could have been the start of a whole new direction for Fox and his crew turns into just another forgettable adventure game that was so plentiful at the time. I felt that by going into depth with the first hour or so was the best way to highlight just about everything the game has to offer, because after that, there aren't too many surprises. You'll explore a few different areas, sure, thwart some new baddies, but if you aren't enjoying yourself at the start, that won't change midway through. If you've never played Star Fox Adventures, but love 3D adventure games like some of those previously mentioned, I think you'll find enjoyment here, but I highly doubt it will make your list of favorite games. If you're more picky, then I think it's safe to skip this GameCube title. Anyway, here's a Wall of Wonder.